You step out of the subway at Noryangjin Station. You smell cheap cup rice sizzling on a street cart. You walk past rows of identical study cafes with blackout curtains. You enter a windowless study cubicle measuring less than 3 square meters. You open your thick administrative law textbook. You check the date on your phone. It has been 4 years. That feeling suffocating your chest isn't just physical fatigue. Economists call it the sunk cost fallacy. Sociologists call it structural bottlenecking. In South Korea, it is the quiet, invisible trap consuming the prime youth of hundreds of thousands of young lives. Every year, tens of thousands of young Koreans freeze their careers, isolate from their social circles, and drain their families' savings attempting to pass the National Civil Service examination. According to official reports from Statistics Korea, at its peak, over 300,000 young adults were actively preparing for government exams in a single year, with acceptance rates routinely dropping below 3% for entry-level positions. Why would an entire generation gamble their 20s on a job that pays barely above minimum wage? To understand why young Koreans feel compelled to make this sacrifice, you first have to understand Gongsisaeng. Gongsisaeng, spelled Gongsisaeng, is the Korean term specifically describing candidates who have put their entire lives on hold to study full-time for public service examinations. In South Korea's hyper-competitive corporate hierarchy, secure jobs at elite conglomerates, known as chaebol, are intensely scarce and fiercely guarded. For decades, becoming a gangmyeon, a government civil servant, was viewed as the ultimate safe haven. It promised absolute job security until retirement, a guaranteed state pension, and social respectability in a culture obsessed with status and stability. However, the economic reality behind this pursuit has turned dangerously toxic. Research published by the Korea Development Institute revealed that the average time spent studying for civil service examinations exceeds 2.5 years, with a significant percentage of test takers remaining trapped in the study loop for over 4 years. During this prolonged period, these young adults earn zero income, build no professional experience, and rely entirely on parental allowances or personal loans to survive. Sociologist Byung-Chul Han describes modern East Asian society as a performance society, where individuals relentlessly exploit themselves under the illusion of achieving security. In the case of the Gongsisaeng, this self-exploitation takes the form of infinite exam preparation. You convince yourself that quitting today means admitting permanent failure, while studying for just one more year maintains the illusion of upcoming success. So let's walk through a week in the life of a 26-year-old test taker in Noryangjin. Noryangjin is Seoul's famous exam village, a dense urban neighborhood packed with massive private cram schools known as hagwons, miniature single-room micro-apartments called gashiwon, and dirt-cheap eateries designed for students living on microscopic budgets. You wake up at 6 in the morning inside a gashiwon room so narrow you can touch opposite walls while sitting on your narrow mattress. You eat a $3 cup of fried rice, known as cupbap, on a noisy street corner while reviewing English vocabulary flashcards on your phone screen. You hurry to your Hagwon auditorium to claim a front row seat alongside 400 other young adults dressed in identical gray sweatpants and black padded jackets. For 12 hours straight, you listen to lectures on Korean history, administrative law, and civil codes. The atmosphere inside the room is suffocatingly intense, punctuated only by the synchronized scratching of pens, soft coughs, and the hum of industrial air purifiers. You do not socialize with the people around you. You do not make eye contact with your neighbors in the lecture hall. In Noryangjin, casual conversations are viewed as dangerous distractions that drain precious mental bandwidth. Friendships are treated as liabilities. At night, you return to your windowless Goshiwon room. You open Kakao Talk on your phone only to see photos of high school classmates celebrating corporate promotions, posting vacation photos, or announcing engagements. You feel a sharp pang of envy, followed immediately by intense guilt for wasting 5 minutes on your phone. You close the app, open your practice test booklet, and set your alarm for 6 in the morning again. How many years of your youth can you trade away before the psychological cost exceeds the reward? Here is the counterintuitive twist that makes the civil service trap so devastating. In recent years, the legendary payoff of becoming a civil servant has almost completely evaporated. Official data from the Ministry of Personnel Management shows that starting salaries for entry-level ninth grade civil servants have fallen significantly behind private sector wages, particularly when adjusted for inflation and the skyrocketing cost of living in Seoul. Recent government pension reforms reduced future retirement payouts, while the administrative workload for junior staff expanded dramatically. Consequently, thousands of young workers who finally passed the exam are now resigning within their first 3 years, citing toxic workplace hierarchy, low pay, and severe burnout. Yet, despite falling wages and rising resignation rates, hundreds of thousands of young people remain unable to break free from the exam cycle. Why do so many remain trapped in a system that no longer delivers on its promises? Behavioral economists point to the psychological mechanics of loss aversion and identity lock-in. Research pioneered by behavioral economists like Dan Ariely demonstrates that humans experience the pain of losing something far more intensely than the pleasure of gaining an equivalent reward. When you have invested 3, 4, or 5 years into a single goal, giving up feels like erasing half a decade of your life. Furthermore, Korea's private job market imposes a severe penalty on gap years. Corporate recruiters view long, unexplained gaps on a resume with immense suspicion. If you quit the civil service exam after 4 years, you enter the corporate job market at 27 or 28 years old with zero work experience, competing against fresh university graduates who are years younger than you. This creates a terrifying reality where staying inside the Gongsisaeng identity feels safer than stepping outside of it. As long as you are actively preparing for an exam, society grants you a temporary moral pass. You are allowed to be unemployed, broke, and isolated because you are technically working toward a respectable goal. The second you stop studying without a passing score, that protective shield disappears, and you are categorized simply as a failure. What does this mean for the way you evaluate your own time, your career, and your fear of starting over? We live in a culture that incessantly glorifies perseverance, telling us that giving up is the ultimate personal defect. We are conditioned to believe that if we just endure enough discomfort and sacrifice enough sleep, success is mathematically guaranteed. However, the reality of Korea's civil service trap reveals a vital psychological truth. Sometimes perseverance is not resilience. It is an invisible cage constructed out of sunk costs, fear of judgment, and social pressure. When a goal demands that you sacrifice your present mental health, social connections, and economic independence for a reward that no longer exists, stepping away is not weakness. It is an act of courage. You step out of the subway at Noryangjin Station. You smell cheap cup rice sizzling on a street cart. You walk past rows of study cafes with blackout curtains. You open your thick textbook one last time. Only this time you close the cover, step out into the sunlight, and realize that your worth was never meant to be calculated inside a 3 square meter room.